So good. Got some tomatoes tonight. Still feeling grower out here. So if you drain your zucchini, I think you hoppy cat, chili dog meal, and sauerkraut. Today we're going to be canning chicken broth. So canning chicken broth is really simple. You can do it a couple of ways. You can can the chicken broth with just the chicken bones with maybe a couple seasonings, or you can can your chicken broth with, leftover pieces of onion peel and carrots and celery and herbs, and it really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. For me today, all I want to do is can the bones. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper in it and maybe some of my herbs from the garden, but I'm not going to add all the vegetables or the onion peels, anything like that. I really want this to be more of a plain chicken broth that I can add to a soup and then flavor it the way I want. Next, I need to wash all of my jars and lids. I thought it was only fitting if I was canning chicken broth, I needed to wear my chicken apron. So if you're interested in making this apron, I'm going to link it above. I have a pattern that I got that this is so cute. It's just some Pioneer Woman material. I've got a little bit of the green polka dot on the back, so it's actually a reversible apron. But, if you're interested, check it out. So whenever I'm canning any kind of broth, I try to make sure I have all different kinds of sizes of jars. I kind of like the quarts, I like the pints, I like the 1.5 quart jars. I like to just use an assortment. That way I have different amounts of broth for different things. As you can see, I got up really early this morning. I'm still in my pajamas, but I wanted to get my broth started. So I've taken some chicken bones out of the freezer. Whenever I have leftover chicken bones, I just throw them in a bag and save them for a later date. And then when I have enough put together and time, I go ahead and make chicken broth. I also do the same thing with beef bones. I just save whatever I have and then make them into broth. It's just a great way to take advantage of food and things that you have left over instead of just throwing them away. Gosh, I'll get several jars of broth out of this, and it's really good to have your own homemade broths on hand. Next, I put them over the stove and I let them come up to a boil, and I cook them for about 2 hours. So this is my broth. I've got a couple of chicken backs in here, and I'm just using these bones to make some really good bone broth. I'm gonna let this cook. I actually have had it cooking about an hour. I'm gonna cook it about another hour. I really want to bring out as much of the nutrients as I can from those bones. So my broth is done cooking, and so now I'm just heating up my jars in the pressure canner, and I'm getting ready to can my chicken broth. So our jars are nice and hot, so we're gonna start canning. So I'm gonna start off with some quart jars. So when you're canning chicken or beef broth, you're gonna find that you're gonna have fat on the top of it. Now you can do two things. You can either use a fat separator and take some of the fat off before you can it. You can do three things. You can freeze it overnight and the fat will solidify and you can just scoop that off. For me, I like to leave it on. It will solidify in the jar. So later I'll leave a little bit of fat on it and I'll take most of it off, just scoop it right off the top. So all I'm gonna do at this point is fill my jars to within 1 inch of headspace. And you can even see now, I don't know if you can see in the video, but you'll be able to see probably after I can, a lot of this fat is already going to the top of the jar. So if you don't want to go to the hassle of waiting, if your broth is ready to can, then don't worry about it. Just can it, and then later on you can just scoop it right off. Or leave it on if you're making something you need a lot of fat in it. It just depends on what you're doing. All right, so that's 1 inch of headspace. do that to the other one. All right. So, because of the fat in this broth, see already you can see the fat coming to the top here. That's perfect. I've taken some vinegar. I'm going to be using a paper towel, and I want to make sure that I get all the fat off the top of the rim of the jar. It's really important that you don't have something that's going to affect your seal, because the fat will. It's one of those things, it just will. So you're going to put your lid on, and your ring, and then you want to tighten it up a little. Just finger tight, and then we're going to put it back in our pressure canner. So my canner has started venting. I don't know if you can see the steam or not, but anyway, now that the steam's coming out, I time it for 10 minutes, and as soon as the 10 minutes up, I will put the weight on it, and we will can this for 25 minutes. So the canning time for pints is 20 minutes, and the canning time for quarts for chicken broth or chicken stock is 25 minutes. But because we have different sizes, you always go with the largest jar and the longest time for your canning if you're mixing size jars. So we're going to be canning these for 25 minutes. As soon as it gets up to 10 pounds of pressure, we'll go ahead and set the timer for 25 minutes. Make sure that the pressure gauge doesn't get below 10 pounds of pressure. And that's pressure for my area. You check the canning temperatures and regulators and all that for your area as well. So my chicken broth is now canned, and I'll show you what I have. So the timer has gone off, and my chicken broth is completely done. So I'm just taking them out of the canner right now. One of them just sealed. So they are just boiling away. This one here is really boiling. I really have never seen them boil like this. Anyway, they're going to be sealing very quickly. Pressure canned items usually seal very fast. So let me just show you how they look. Well, you can see they just look amazing. So if you enjoyed this video today, can you please consider subscribing to my channel? Give me a like, a thumbs up, or ring the bell for future notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.